what is it all for? Like,
Yeah.
what is it all for? And yeah, it's to make money, but I could burn myself to the ground to hit that revenue target just so I can tick the box and say, yeah, I hit, whatever the target was.
Mhm.
Yet I'm miserable. I have had no time with my family. I'm unhealthy. I'm not sleeping. I've got stress ulcers. And cool, but I ticked the goal. I hit the
Mhm.
milestone. But it's like the at what cost part, right? And is there maybe a reframed goal that we have to ask ourselves sometimes around like what is it actually all for?
So, is this segueing into what your book is about? Because less hustle, more happy seems to lend itself to actually asking ourselves those questions.
I mean, look, less hustle, more happy is definitely like all of my. Can I swear on this podcast?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh,
It's called
cool.
a wine with inherently it's off the rails.
Like, less hustle, more happy is definitely all of my a book built on my fuck ups over like yeah,
I
in the
love it.
hope that other people can't. But I just think, it's probably more to do with what you said at the very start around the fact that I've been the first person to introduce myself as the human instead of a list of job titles that we hold as business owners. And I like to me, that's the essence of everything.
Mm.
Life is more, and this is like a totally a business podcast, and like we can totally talk and we'll talk about all that stuff. But
Mm.
how do we make sure that as business owners, like we didn't just buy ourselves a job? And I've had this conversation with myself a number of times over the years.
Yes.
Like, I want to make sure I didn't just buy myself a job where now I'm just earning less and working harder, but
Yeah.
and I'm miserable, but I'm not going to tell people that because like I run a
Because
business, right?
Instagram.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think like it is to me it always will come back to like who are you? What is it for?
Mm.
And is all of the steps you're taking in your business getting you closer towards that or further away from that? So yes, I guess like less hustle, more happy definitely touches on some of that stuff.
It's such an interesting question to reflect on. So what is it all for? Because I feel like sometimes we get stuck in our to-do list, speaking of to-do lists, and all of the things and the client delivery and the this and the that. And find ourselves a year down the road, 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, thinking, what the hell did I just do with my life? So I'm a
Yeah.
really big believer in the stop and ask ourselves those critical questions and explore and have conversations with people. And I just think it's such a beautiful question to ask yourself, what is it all for?
What is it all for? Here's one for you too. We get on average, if we're lucky to live to the global average age of 70, we get 25,550 days. And of those,
Wow, I just got goosebumps.
most of us will work in some capacity for nearly two-thirds of that time, right? Whether it's running
Mm,
our own business, when it's in a career, part-time jobs, casual jobs, everything in between. Don't we want to know beyond just paying my mortgage? Like,
yeah.
don't
Yeah.
we want to know what I kind of want to get out of it? And even if that clarity is just, it's a feeder for me to spend time with my kids, it's a feeder for me to work at home, and do school pickups and drop offs, like whatever it is, like even that gives you the why to then withstand the how or the what, or those
Yeah.
challenging days or the rejection days where you're like, nobody's buying what I'm selling. Why? Right? Like you can still keep going back to like, when you want to flip a table and just go back to a job,
Yes.
reminding ourselves of like, what is this getting me and what is it for?
Yeah, and it's so powerful to have that anchor, isn't it?
Mm.
It's actually really funny. I'm launching a course on how to start a podcast, and I don't know, it feels like the hardest freaking thing I have done in a long time. Like I don't know why though. Like I know the content, I've published hundreds of episodes, I've done courses before, but for some reason I'm really struggling to get through this course. And I'm right on the home stretch. So it's like the last 20% that's like the toughest. And, I'm just, as you're talking, I feel like, that is the answer. What is it all for? Like actually having that anchor to remind myself why I'm actually doing the hard things.
Yeah.
It's so important to have that, once we called it the why we're doing things. But I think it goes deeper than that, and to really understand, and what's coming up for me now is like the delayed gratification. I think about, what is it all for? Is it all for, in a decade's time I get to be happy, or in a decade I get to do this? I'm like, no, that's actually not what it's all for. You are
Yeah.
so right when you said a lot of us created these businesses for these micro moments, like spending time with our family, or vacationing more, or being able to take our kids to school, or whatever that looks like for anybody who's started a business. But I think, yeah, we sometimes get so wrapped up in things that we do forget that anchor.
Absolutely. And especially like with the world we're in too around, I don't know about you, but I have felt as a business owner constant pressure over
Mm.
the years to have to do all of the things like,
Yeah.
even just like social media as an example, right? Like Insta and Facebook and LinkedIn and TikTok. And now, like, I've got to learn this software and I've got to learn this software. Oh, but now people are doing this and I just mastered this, but that's not in vogue anymore. You've got to do this instead. And now I've got to have a podcast and a YouTube. And I've got to build courses and I've got to do all of the things that it's unless you're really intentional around
Mhm.
it's going to probably sound like a Hallmark card, but like
Yeah.
unless you're really intentional around backing yourself, there will
Mm.
be a reason every single day to feel like you aren't doing enough.
Mm.
And that's the other reason why I think that the anchor is so
Yeah.
important, because it helps you kind of manage, I think, the to-do list a little bit better, and like, well, I've only got finite amount of time. So is doing all of like these things actually getting me closer to the anchor, or is it just spreading myself even thinner for for an impact that I don't think's actually getting me the outcomes I'm looking for? And that's been a huge thing for me over the last few years.